with hands-on home inspections. I've been doing inspections since 2006 and I love every single day that I do it. I really enjoy my job. As far as the home inspections are concerned, one thing I want to mention straight off the bat is that a home inspection does not pass or fail. A lot of people say to me, you know, did my home inspection pass or did it fail? It never does. A home inspection is simply a snapshot in time of the current condition of the home and its components. All right? So even though the home may be in good shape today, it may not be tomorrow. There are a lot of factors that could change that, whether you know, maintain the components of the home itself, changing air filters, etc., etc. It really does make a lot of difference when you are maintaining the home on a constant basis. I wanted to keep this as brief as possible, and I thought what I would do is just go through the pictures of a home that I have inspected so you can see exactly what I look at a home inspection. I'm not going to mention anybody's names, so I'll keep it under the gun, but I wanted you to see exactly what I look at, and I'll explain to you what the pictures mean and why I took them at the same time. Before I do that, I just wanted to say that the home inspection does take about 3 hours. I always encourage people to come along to the inspection itself, because that way I can explain to them, you know, what is going on in a certain area, why it is an area of concern, and how it can be fixed. So I always tell people, you know, bring a comfortable pair of sneakers and be prepared that it is a long inspection. The prices of inspections vary from inspector to inspector, but I would say for an average size home, you're looking at about $300 to $350, depending on who you're using. And with that, I'm going to go through the pictures. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me. But I think I'll just go through the pictures one by one, and there are about 80 photos or so, so I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. Okay. This is just the exterior of the home. When I get to the home itself, I'll take a look at it from across the road. That way you can take a look at the home from a macro point of view. You can see the house and learn a lot from the house from a distance. You can see if the lines are straight. You can get a good idea of, you know, which way the gutters are leaning. When you have gutters, you want to make sure that they are sloped towards the downspout. That way you know you've got water flowing in the right direction. You can see if the chimney's straight. You can learn a lot from a macro point of view. So that's why I do that. I walk across the street as soon as I get there. This is another macro view of the home itself, just from a closer perspective. And you can see that it is a gorgeous. So this is, I was telling somebody the other day, that's not the biggest or the newest or the fanciest home I've ever inspected, but in my opinion, I thought it was the coolest home I've ever inspected. It was perfect. You know, there were a lot of maintenance items and areas of concern, but the layouts of the home, everything about the home was, in my opinion, I thought it was great to inspect. So again, that's just a macro view. You can see that we have a gable vent. It's a gable style roof, and the gutters are slanting towards the downspout, so we know that that's in good condition. As soon as I walked up the stairs to the arbor, I noticed that there was an exterior receptacle, and you can tell that with my tester that it doesn't have any power to that receptacle. So, you know, we know that there's no power to that, and we know that it's not GFCR protected, which is the outlet with the test and reset buttons. Any exterior outlet or any outlet within 6 feet of water, that'll include your kitchen sinks, bathroom sinks, and any exterior wall outlet should be GFCR protected. Okay, that is for additional safety, and it is new code. This particular inspection took place in the city of Oswego. When I do the Oswego inspections, I take a look at the sidewalk, because the homeowner is responsible for the sidewalk, believe it or not. And if anyone trips or falls on that sidewalk, they can come to you for the insurance money. And a lot of people don't know that, so I'll make sure that the sidewalk is in good repair and that there aren't any trip hazards. You're not responsible for fixing it, but you are responsible for letting the city know that it needs to be fixed. All right? That's the retaining wall before going up to the arbor itself, to the house. And it was in good condition. I took the photo just to let the buyer know that because it's a retaining wall and because it's an older retaining wall, to ensure that it's not going to be bowing, you know, with the ice buildup and snow melting behind those rocks. When it does refreeze, you're going to have that hydrostatic pressure pushing against those rocks, and you'll have the potential to fall over. But since it's not a true retaining wall, you know that water's going to be seeping through the cracks on the bottom, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay. The fencing, you can see that there are some vines and some vegetation breaking through the fencing. Just a slat that needs to be repaired there. And then as you walk up, you can see that there are 2 or more steps. So there, you know, a handrail is required. They say that if there are 2 or more steps going up to the house itself or any interior staircases, 1 handrail is required. If it's 2 or more steps and a width of 44 inches or more wide, you have to have handrails on both sides. All right? With spindles. You don't want to fall off the side. And then the downspouts should extend, they say 4 to 6 feet away from the house. Anytime a downspout terminates at the home itself, you have that possibility of the water being, the water getting into the soil and undermining the structural integrity of that soil. It's actually holding up that footer, that foundation in that particular area. And what it does is, you know, as it undermines the soil, it gets to below the footer, and the soil that's holding up that footer or that foundation area actually weakens, and that's where you get those cracks inside of the home. And a lot of that is caused by the downspouts, because the amount of water that comes off of the roof is incredible, and you are allowing it to pool into one area and then flow to one little section there. So you know all of that water coming off of the roof is landing straight there. All right, so it's always a recommendation to put those extensions on the downspouts at least, I say 6 feet away from the home, but they say 4 to 6 feet away from the home. Okay. And because of the height of that front porch, I recommended that this buyer put a guardrail up there. You don't want any kids or animals falling off of that. Okay. And you can see some rot on the fencing itself. And it really isn't easy fix. It just needs to be replaced. One little board. Actually, going back to that, any wood on the exterior of the home should always be sealed somehow. Pressure-treated wood is only pressure-treated up to that first 1/8 of an inch. Everything inside that piece of wood is not pressure-treated. So if you're looking at the flooring on a deck, for example, and you see those cracks, the water's going to get in there and actually eat away at the wood in the hollow of the flooring itself. I've actually broken a piece of decking, and it was completely hollow on the inside, and just that outer layer was pressure treated, so that was all intact. So I always recommend that even if it is pressure treated, seal it. You know, it takes a long time for pressure treated wood to deteriorate, but it will happen. So any exterior wood should always be sealed. The exterior faucets, this one was switched off from the inside. But anytime I see an exterior faucet, I tell people, make sure that it's switched off during the winter months. Or you can replace the exterior spigot itself with what they call an anti-siphon valve, and that prevents the water from getting sucked back into the home, which may lead to burst pipes in the winter time. And the grounding cable, which was connected to the water line, is not connected anymore. So we know that it's not grounded in that particular area. And again, any exterior wood is going to delaminate or rot if it's not properly sealed. Vines, even though they look pretty, and especially with the universities and whatnot, they look great, but it's never a recommendation to have it on the house. They do have suction pads, and they actually eat away at the brick and mortar when they suction onto the material itself. Again, it takes a really long time for that to happen, but any vegetation should be kept away from the home at least a foot. Not only that, but it can actually grow behind the siding and on the interior wall, And you'll never see that, but all of that condensation in that vegetation gets deposited between the wall and the house itself, which may lead to rot and mold. I've actually seen the vines go up behind the siding into the attic, and the entire attic looked like a jungle. So it is recommended to make sure that it's cut away from the home. And you can see that some of the mortar is deteriorating between the bricks as well, so I recommended that they repoint that particular section. Okay. Those used to be skylights, but they have been taken out, so I just took that photo to let the home buyer know. And then the siding is too close to the ground in this area. The sill plate, which connects the foundation and the home together, that's a really, really important piece of wood, because it's your connection point. And if it's too close to the ground, you do have that possibility, especially in upstate New York, where we have the snow that settles against the house. That snow and that water can actually move towards that sill plate and rot that out. Again, it's exposed wood. You want to make sure that that's always sealed. So they recommend that the bottom of the siding is at least 12 to 18 inches from the grate itself. That way it doesn't, you're protecting it from the snow and water buildup from the bottom. And you can see that there is quite a flat grade. The houses are built very close to each other here, but you always want to have a positive grade away from the home. You want to make sure that the ground is sloping away from the home. That way, if any water is settling in that area, it's going to flow away from the home as opposed towards the foundation. And a little bit of broken siding there. And another cosmetic fix. What I do when I take the photos, and I don't use all of these photos in the reports, but I do like to take photos of everything that I see so that the homeowner or the buyer is aware of it. But a lot of the pictures that I take are just cosmetic things as well, and this is one of them, just a broken screen. And I look inside every single dry event. The lint should not be in there at all. It is extremely simple. And I think I mentioned this last time that Al Pacino or Robert De Niro's place in New York City burnt down last year from this very thing. The lint trap was loaded with lint, and it caught alight, burnt his apartment down. So I always tell people, make sure that it is always clean. And this is just a picture of underneath the deck to show the client how the deck is attached to the home and the integrity of the decking itself. Okay. The gate latch is missing. So, as I said to them, you need another latch? Because the latch itself is gone. And a little bit of degradation there at the bottom of, this is where the chimney goes up on the side of the house, and you can see that some of the concrete has filled at the bottom. You can see that there are a lot of holes and whatnot. Water does get in there, and especially in this area, water's going to freeze and expand, so that just makes that crack bigger. So it's always a good idea to ensure that there aren't any cracks, especially around the concrete areas. Okay, some exposed wood again. Believe it or not, that was painted. Because of the snow buildup at the bottom, it actually ate away at the paint. The top was completely painted, but as you look at the door frame going down, you saw the paint deteriorating, and you can see a little bit of moss growth on the bottom. And the flap on the dry vent is missing. So you are allowing water, air to come back into the house, as well as insects, and you don't want that to happen. This is just a general overview of the roof itself from the peak. It gives you a good idea. You can see that the front section of the house is a different shingle than the back section. You can see it's grey on the left-hand side and green on the top. You can learn a lot again from as high a point as possible, and everything looked great in this roof. It was newer roofing. And that's the back section. You can see these people love skylights, huh? And I always check the skylights for a nice seal, because believe it or not, every single skylight leaks at some point in its life. Every single one of them. So it's always important to make sure that they are completely sealed. You don't want that water running down. This I found interesting. When you do have skylights, they have flashing on the bottom. And the flashing it's like a shingle. You start from the bottom and you overlap the top sections. That way, if any water is going to be on top of it, it's going to flow down and it's not going to get underneath that shingle. So the bottom part of the flashing of the skylight is like a shingle, but they actually shingled over it with the asphalt shingle. It shouldn't look like that. It should look like that. It should be on top. So we know that that shingle's underneath, so water can get in there. So I look for things like that as well. Exposed nails shouldn't be exposed. It's a penetration, and that's allowing water to get into the attic itself. And that's just a picture of the chimney itself. There was nothing wrong with the chimney. When I'm on the roof, when I do the inspection, I don't only point out the things that need to be fixed. I like to point out the things that are neat as well. You know, by the time you're ready for the home inspection, you've already gone through all of these processes. You're already sold in the house as far as I'm concerned, and I like to point out the good things about the home as well. And I said to this potential buyer, you know, when I was up there, it was a really cool picture a really cool view of the lighthouse, so I took a photo for you. And then I zoomed in. Okay, looking down the flue of the chimney, and that looked great. The chimney flashing, you can see that it is deteriorating where the flashing meets the chimney itself, so I recommended that they reseal. And any siding should not be nailed completely to the house itself. Siding breathes, it expands and contracts, so it should move back and forth. When you have these little ridges on top of the siding, when you're attaching it to the wall, they say you should never attach it completely to the wall. There should be an 1/8 of an inch gap. That way that siding can move back and forth. When you see buckled siding or wavy siding on the side of the home, my first thought is that it's nailed flush to the wall itself, and it's not allowed to breathe, so it actually starts buckling and waving. So you can see that this is nailed completely to the wall, and that's not a recommendation. And the corner piece is broken there, so I recommended that they repair that. And then one little piece of the roof on the bottom section, and that's why it's important. A lot of inspectors don't climb on the roofs, and in New York State they don't have to, especially in the winter months. You know, if it's considered a safety hazard, the home inspector has no obligation to climb on that roof at all. I always try if I find it safe. But if I can't, I'll tell the home buyer, I'll come back. I have no problem coming. That's what you're paying for, so I'll come back and take a look at it when there's no snow or ice on the roof itself. But going back a few pictures, you saw that the macro view of the house looked great from the roof itself. It was really nice. But if you I actually walked around one of the skylights and found that this one little piece of the roofing was older. So we know that this particular area, and you can see it's old. We've got granular loss, cupping, and the spacing of the tabs are quite big, so it's very old, and there is a potential for leaking. And it's a single layer. It looks like there's two, but that's actually one layer of roofing. So that is nice because New York State allows two. And there's an open section, the next picture's better, where the attic was actually exposed. It's sealed, and some of the trim there needs to be fixed as well. I'm going to go a little bit quicker. Insect activity, I always take pictures of that to let people know. Just, you don't want anyone getting stung, so I always recommend that they remove those. And one part of the roof was covered with snow, so I'll take a picture of that. Not only to let the people know, but to cover my butt as well. To say, look, I couldn't inspect that area. There was snow on it. And you can see the telephone cable is intertwined with the vines itself. So I told you to get rid of those vines in that area. Stereo out there, and then missing cover. This is a safety hazard. The covers are so cheap. I mean, I think they cost 17 cents. For a cover to be put on there is no hard task at all. And I find it in every single house, and it is a safety hazard, especially if you've got kids in the house. So I always tell people, make sure that they have covers. And again, because you've got 2 or more steps, you should have a handrail that's going down into the basement. That's the gas meter itself, and I would point out where the gas shuttle valve is in case they don't have the opportunity to call Limo, Niagara, Mohawk, or whatever to switch it off, so I'll point that out. Steel posts in there, and just a picture of the furnace itself. I'll take pictures of all of the data plates because they can fall off or they can fade. So I'll take pictures of that. If for whatever reason they need to get a hold of the company and say, we need to replace a part or whatever the case may be, they have all of these pictures on file. I had a rough time with this one. And the water heater itself. You can see that temperature pressure relief valve on the right-hand side. It doesn't have an extension. If, for whatever reason, that pressure buildup gets to a certain point and that relief valve does let go, all of that scalding water in there is going to spray out of that brass piece inside there. And if anyone's in that area, they're going to get burnt. So, again, this is a safety hazard. There should be an extension. I tell people you can put a PVC piece of piping up there, copper, whatever the case may be, but there really must be an extension, and it should terminate about 4 to 6 inches from the ground itself. And this is a gas furnace, and it's not vented, so we know that all of that combustible air is not being vented to the exterior of the home. It's actually being vented to the interior of the home, and it's a carbon monoxide death waiting to happen. And the main water shuttle valve, I'll point that out as well. And you can see where that, earlier I pointed out that ground cable for the water meter. You can see it's connected on the inside, but not on the outside. Okay, the data plate there. And the drainage pipes. I just let them know. You can see that the drainage pipes have been replaced over time, and now that they are PVC leading to the cast iron. Again, we have another open junction box with no cover. There's no cover, and not only that, but those wires were live. I tested them. They were live, and they're exposed like that. In this area, a lot of the homes are built with stone, and you're going to have water seeping in. It's normal. If you have it in your home, it really is normal. Okay, especially with the stone basements, even the concrete block basements. Concrete blocks are porous. They are meant to let water through. So when I see water runoff like that or water stains, we know that it's not leaking, it's seeping. The ground on the bottom is dry, so we know that there's no water pouring into the basement walls itself. And again, that is absolutely normal. And the rim joist of the home, I always recommend that it's insulated to keep that heat in. It's way up there on the list of heat loss in the home itself, and hardly anyone has that area insulated. You can save a ton of money by insulating that rim joist, and that's in the interior of the basement wall. You can see that the floor joist is cracked, the top section, and that is the first place I look for cracks, because you can see it's notched actually into the wood, and that's the weakest point of the floor joist. So I recommended that they assisted that by putting 2 pieces of wood on either side, and that way you can support it nicely to the length of that joist. And you can see another one underneath that nail starting. And another one at that notch too. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Explain it very well.
Okay, thank you.
When are we getting to the inside?
Yeah,
I
we're
want to
getting
see the house.
You're getting there. The funny thing, I don't take pictures of the house itself. I zoom in. I wish I did, but no, thanks. So there was another open junction box, and you can see that they replaced the floor in this area. It was underneath the tub, so it would obviously leak at one stage. And then I tell people what the filter size is. Hardly anyone knows what the filter size is. So I always take pictures, so that way they know. Instead of going to a store to buy a filter, when they get there, they're like, oh, what size is this? And then I open up the electrical panel completely, and I take a look at the wiring inside. You want to make sure that, number one, there aren't any double taps, which means two circuits running off of one breaker. So you'll have two wires going into one breaker. And you can see that there's one wire going into every single breaker, which is exactly how it should look. And then I also look at the size of the wire matching the breaker. The wire can be bigger than the breaker itself, and it cannot be smaller. You have certain gauges. You have like what they call a 12 gauge wire, which matches a 20 amp breaker. And a 14 size wire matches a 15 amp breaker. Sometimes they'll actually replace the breaker, but they don't look at the size of the wire. If you have a 20 amp breaker with a 14 size wire, that means the wire is too small for that breaker, and you're allowing too much energy going through that wire, and it actually overheats, and that's what causes house fires. So it's important to take a look at that, and that's exactly why I do that. Just an overview, and you can see there's 200 amps coming in. I'll take a picture of the circuit labels as well. I don't verify them, but I do that, in case that does disappear or fade. And I'm not going to get into the furnace needed work. It was definitely old. I think this was a 35-year-old furnace, so it had exceeded its life expectancy. And even though if an appliance has exceeded its life expectancy, it doesn't mean it's going to go tomorrow. I always refer to them as a deferred cost item. Put money towards it so that when it does go, you have that money set aside. Water heaters last 8 to 12 years, mine's 30, but I have money set aside for when it does go. Okay. And just in this area, you can see some rust in the flames. Again, another exposed wire, and it was live as well. That was actually in a closet with flammable materials, so you want to make sure that these are covered. And that would be the crawl space. Just an overview of the crawl space itself. You can see the insulation it's hung upside down. The paper should always face the warm side of the home because it's your water vapor barrier, so you want to make sure that it's facing the right side. And you can actually see that this is applied upside down. You can see some of the insulation is missing. And just a picture of the vent, so we know that it is vented down there. And the water vapor barrier is upside down. We've got mold-like material in that area. And I think I mentioned before, I'm not allowed to call it mold. New York State prevents me to. It's a mold-like material. And we know there's moisture in the crawl space itself. It's pretty evident that it's gotten to the wood. Getting to the crawl space, the only way is to hop down that ladder. I suggested upgrading that to a more convenient and safe entry. And stair rails and newel posts should always be nicely secured so they aren't loose. Okay. We've got some smoke and carbon monoxide detectors out there on the floor. And then you can see this is the tub where the shower stall meets the wall. And where it meets the wall, you can see the caulking is beginning to crack. And even if you have a bathroom exhaust fan, you're going to have water runoff. They're just not strong enough to maintain, to get all of that moisture out of the air. So I always tell people to ensure that even if they are using the bathroom exhaust fan, to make sure that that caulking is nice and sealed. The caulking does crack over time, but you're going to have runoff, and water's going to get behind that stall, and the wood, the drywall or the plaster behind that area, more often than not is not painted. So water in that area is going to cause problems. So I always tell them, make sure that that's sealed. It's a simple and quick fix, but it could save a lot of money down the line. And it's on the side of the tub as well. Slow drainage in this area. I noticed a lot of hair in there, so pretty simple fix. And then the strike plate on the door is a bit loose, as well as some of the hardware on the cupboards. Okay. Even though it's a cable, it is missing a junction box cover, and the door stop is missing in this particular area. And there's one leaking skylight. Okay. What I like about my little outlet tester is it tells you exactly how it's wired. I don't have to open it up and take a look at the wires itself. If you look at the little circles on the top there, it tells you if there's, if there's a red light and an orange light in the middle, how it's wired and how it can be fixed. Just a picture of the storage. That was nice because the buyer didn't even know that this area existed. So I took a picture to them. And then in the pantry, the covers were missing. You can see it, but it's in the center there, just a BB hole-sized break in the glass itself. And I suggested some railing in that area, again, in the laundry room, and this is right by the floor. And these people did actually have kids. And I said, look, please put some covers on these. And behind the actual laundry, and you can see the light above the wash and dryer was not connected at all, and it's the wrong cover for that area. The exposed wires there. And this is the main bedroom leading to the bathroom. I recommended some handrails there. Whether they do it or not is up to them, but at least I let them know that it's an additional safety feature. The outlet, because it's within 6 feet of water, should be GFCI protected. In this case, it wasn't. And any glass doors, like sliding glass doors or shower doors, I always take a look to see if it's tempered glass. It normally has a stamp somewhere. That way you know that it is tempered glass. You're not going to get sliced to pieces if it does break. So I always make sure that those are tempered. And you can't see it, but the stamp is there. And the caulking around the tub again. And this is another skylight with leaking in the corner. The steps are uneven. It's considered a safety hazard. There really isn't much more you can do there besides redoing the stairs, but at least I let them know that it's considered a safety hazard. Behind the kitchen sink itself, the caulking is broken, so I recommended that they redo that. And I thought that was neat. How cool is that stuff? So I just took a picture. And outlets right underneath the countertops or islands. It's not a recommended practice because if you are plugging something in there, like a coffee percolator or something, and a kid walks by and yanks on that cord, it can fall on them. I believe it's against code now, with the new builds at least, to have outlets right underneath the kitchen countertop like that. But it was something that I wanted them to be aware of. If they are going to use it, just to use it with caution, especially if they've got kids around, because you can bump that off. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Great.
I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible.
That was great. Thanks so much for
Is that different houses? I hope this is not one house that had all these problems.
This is one house.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Most of them, though, and this is what I tell people when.
I thought the same thing. That looks
a lot of what I point out are cosmetic. A lot can be fixed within the first summer of moving
You
in.
would think.
But it's part of owning a home. Every home requires maintenance on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Cover those plugs.
Yeah,
Well,
once you
we can do that.
I know.
once you cover the plugs, the plugs are covered. You can cross that off the
Yes,
list.
those are hot wires.
So, and like I said, as far as the house itself is concerned, it was fantastic to inspect. It was beautiful. But when the people walk in there, they're just looking at the cosmetic, items itself, the colors of the walls, etc. But I don't look at that at all. I'm looking at more in depth at the safety. I focus mainly on the safety issues. That's my main concern. When I inspect the house as if I'm inspecting it for my family, and I think that's important as well because you want the people to be safe. That is that.
Okay.
Thank you.
My house. Use a real estate agent.